This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
My name is Kiani Mills, and this podcast is created to help you see, feel, and experience the human side of business. I'm a business owner, an entrepreneur, and a parent. And like many who have travelled this path before me, I've been through the lows of the lows and the gut-wrenching pain. But I've been through the triumphs and the wins and the indescribable highs, all of which I consider to be my lessons in the school of life. On this show, we are going to start some conversations to ignite new world ideas into some very old age businesses. So if you're a leader, a business mind, or an entrepreneur, get ready to think, act, and feel differently so that we can all reach a new level of business success together. So, what are you waiting for?
Welcome back to this week's episode of She Can Humanize Business. We are here to talk all things business, but how important it is to bring the human element in, if it's not already there, and if it is, well done. I like to bring guests onto the show that are already embodying this nature of bringing the human or creating our business around the human, as opposed to constantly chasing the dollars and the cents. So I'm very, very grateful to have my good friend Carlo here today. Welcome, Carlo.
Thanks for having me. Grateful to be here.
I know, and it's so beautiful to see your face again. It's been such a long time.
I think it was like some ceremonies that we've done or events. That would have been a long time ago.
In I'm gonna say Collingwood.
Second Story, yes.
Rainbow. Yes. Yeah, that was beautiful. And was that lockdown, before lockdown?
I think it was in between. I think there was a few times where we got some freedom and we were like, okay, we're hosting events.
That's right. Yeah. Amazing. So I've had some personal experiences in the world that Carlo has inspired, which has been beautiful. And it was part of the start of my journey of finding cacao and finding ceremony and taking space to look after me. So I would love to start, and we've already discussed this. So most of the guests, I'm like, tell me where you're at or where you're going. We're going to go back. We're going to go back, and we're going to really have a look into how your world transpired and what it was for you that created your need, and not need. It's more so like a deeper knowing that contribution and service is your pillar of strength.
I love that. Let's dive in, because it's like I was saying before, when people come on podcasts, I think it's so natural for people to share, where they're going and the things that are going great. And I told you before, real open and honest, like I'm in a big transition with a lot of challenges. And for me, there's so many lessons from all the failures that have happened. And yes, failure can mean so many different things, but for me, it's all lessons, and they're all gifts and blessings on it's shown you what works and what has worked and what hasn't. And a lot of things have worked, but then evolved and shifted. So I'm excited to dive into those things, because I think it's a really important part of where I am right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so excited. So how far back are we going?
You can go as far back as you want. There's probably 10 years of business there that we can touch upon. Amazing.
So answer me this. As you spoke about, the failures are lessons. Did you always believe that? Or was there a time when that didn't really land or make as deep a sense to you as it does now?
I've been very blessed that from 17 years old, I was in network marketing, and I was very much into the world of personal development. So I was listening to people like Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor. And at 17, you don't really, you're still starting to, learn about the world and all of that. So when I had all these people in my ear saying, failure isn't failure, failure is a lesson. And you need to fail in order to be successful. Like that was drummed into my ear so much. And this was like, I didn't have an iPod back then. I had CDs in my car. So I was listening to these on repeat, and it really wasn't. And the people that I was surrounded by were entrepreneurs and people in network marketing. So there was not this big focus on a failure means failure. Now, before that, it was a failure for me was the pressure I put on myself when I was a soccer player. So I, very blessed to have played for my state, my country, played in Europe for 2 years. Semi-professionally, and that to me was a lot of pressure on failure. Like if I did one thing wrong, then I was a failure.
And letting the team down too, like it's a big thing in sport.
100%. And a lot of that came down to, not wanting to let people down, not wanting to let the coach down. And, if that one mistake lost you the game, then that would be seen as a failure. And that was directed like straight onto me, and I'd put that pressure on myself. But growing up, going into that the network marketing career and being surrounded by those people, failure just meant the next step. And I've just recently announced that I'm shutting my studio in Mildura, where I do a lot of my wellness stuff, my first Sala hub. And, you never expect to close something, especially in business. You never expect to stop. You always expect this trajectory of, a smooth line going upwards. But as we know in business, there's ups, downs, there's roller coasters of everything. So opening this space was, super exciting 6 months ago, and then coming to the point where it's like, well, hang on, we've done the numbers, we've done everything. We need to make some decisions now. It's not going the way we wanted it to. We need to close it. It's a tough decision. It's sad. It's hard on my ego. It's hard on, my heart, because it was something I loved. A lot of people were like, don't see this as a failure because, you've done so well. And I'm like, that's easy to say. And I know that, because in my brain, I go, I know it's not a failure, but there's still times where I go, well, that does feel like I failed in what I set out to do. But I think it's only failed in the expectation of it needed to continuously grow and just, again, smooth sailing for 10 years. But as we know in business, you need to evolve. So when I look at failures now, I go, the failure is the lesson that I'm getting from this. And although we're closing this one, it doesn't mean it can't happen in Melbourne or Sunshine Coast or Brisbane in a different way. So taking the lessons from things. So failure doesn't have the weight that it used to have in soccer, where it was like literally, not literally do or die, because that's not a literally win or lose.
Felt like that.
Yeah, it did at the time, and the pressure that I put on myself. But now it's like, I'm either going to win or learn from this experience. So the failure isn't the be all end all for everything. That was a long answer for that.
I know, I love it so much. And there's so many things in there as well. Because for me at 17, I was binge drinking. So you're doing incredible. But no, in what you were saying, our logical brain only knows success and failure. So if we haven't succeeded and we haven't reached the goals that we set for this organization or this business, then of course we failed, right? Even though deep down we know we haven't, it's still that moment of like, oh, it's either this way or it's that way, So it's such a natural feeling. And people also can be really super hard on themselves and be like, I went into this mindset of thinking that I'd failed, and, bury themselves down deeper. It's like, no, let it. That's okay. That's all right. And then the reality, as you said, is that maybe it just needs to happen in a different way. There's always what's next. So that's a really beautiful, beautiful way. And also too, professional athletes, man, that's tough.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. So what from that, because I'm sure, and I've heard from a lot of people that there are, again, the lessons in the hard and the pressure and the tough. What do you feel were maybe the main things that you were able to take from that experience and bring over to the other side of stepping away from professional sport?
Yeah, I think this is the one thing I love talking about, because it's so common to see other athletes then go from sport into something else. And the few traits, or the many traits that I did receive from sport, was consistency, was working towards an end goal, was teamwork, was continuously working on yourself. Like soccer, it's a finite game, right? It's 90 minutes. There's 11 people on each team. There's a winner and a loser or a draw at the end of the day. You're working towards the end of the season to win the championship, let's say. So even if you lose the first 5 games, you technically still can win at the end of the day, unless you give up. So that lesson for me was, you're not just playing 1 year in your life, you're playing multiple years. Now, in soccer, sometimes we were in a rebuilding stage where there was a lot of young kids coming in and we were maybe losing, but we're trying to get the right fit for everyone and who's playing where. And we still weren't gelling, but we knew that would take 2-3 years to become a championship winning team. Right. And especially because, I changed teams nearly every year. So it was always like trying to fit in straight away. And some of the teams I played with were really bad, right? We didn't do well. But then I played for other teams where we all just gelled really good and we won, I've won, well, technically, since I retired, I hadn't lost a game in 3 years, right? And playing for different teams, it was just always winning, and something just worked. And maybe for myself, I played better because there wasn't that pressure. But knowing that it wasn't the one game we're going to play this weekend determines whether you're a winner or a loser, meant that even if we won, we still had to go to training. You still had to show up. You still had to do the sprints. You still had to do the hard work, because it wasn't the one game. It was the 30 games that made the difference. And even if you won the 30, you could lose in the grand final. So it meant no matter what happens this weekend or at this checkpoint, one, you set the intention. Like, you don't go into business going, I'm going to fail. No, you set the intention of like, I want to succeed, but what does success look like for you? Like, is it, again, making money? Of course, that should be one of the goals. You don't want to lose money in business. But let's say a long-term vision, like in soccer, was, okay, we want to be challenging for the title at the end of the year. It just meant we needed to be consistent. We needed to be focused. We needed to know our goals at the start of the year, and each individual person had to show up for that. So bringing that into business, it was like 5-6 years ago, I was doing a lot of different things. I started my podcast, especially, let's go with the podcast, because that's a really good one. I'm at 164 episodes now, right? Which is good, but I also fell off the bandwagon. It should be up at like 400 or 500 if I was really consistent. Now, for 2-3 years, I was consistent. Every week, new episode. I was flying to different places to interview people. I knew when I started, I said, this isn't about money for me. I knew that starting a podcast, I wanted to get past 20, because most people don't get past 10. And I was like, what's the point? If I'm going to invest in all this gear and do it properly, I want to do this. But why was I doing it? So I then created a why and an intention. Well, I wanted to connect with incredible people, but also share those lessons with everyone, because I believe everyone deserves to know all this and have these conversations with people that they might not get to. And I said, I'm going to give myself 10 years. And in that 10 years, if I can create a business out of this, or a community, or get some sponsors and have a full-time wage doing this while I'm working a job and whatever, that'd be pretty damn cool. Like, why not? I always wanted to work in radio, but I was like, talking about the radio stuff isn't really what I want to talk about. So podcast was naturally the next thing. And it all happened very quick for me, because I was consistent. I didn't give up after seeing, 10 people download the first 5 episodes, and, 8 of those being my family members and friends, and the other 2 or 20 being me going on different devices, right? That can easily put someone off at the start. And soccer, same thing. We could go out and be like, we're going to win, lose 5-0, and be like, well, fuck, what's going to happen? We're going to, lose the season. But it's like, we all need to focus on the long term of things. Short term, yes, you got to have those goals and checkpoints, but if you give up too soon, then you've lost everything. And it reminds me of when I was playing soccer, and this is going back a long time, like when I was 13, there was a game, and it was a deciding game in the season. If we won that game, we would win the league. So it was high importance, between 13 and 15, and we were losing 2-1, and there was 1 minute left. And I don't know what clicked. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to switch on, and we're going to win this, right? And everyone else would be like, we've lost this. Like, we need 2 goals to win this game. Scored a goal, grabbed the ball, ran back to the start. And I was like, all right, we're doing this again. And they kick off, right? So they could have just passed it around for a minute. I sprinted, I got the ball, and I remember shooting it from like a long range, and it went in. So I think it was 54 seconds, I scored 2 goals to win that game. I'll never forget it, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't actually mean anything, because it was like a local league, whatever. But to me, it was like, if I had have just sat there and went, nah, that's it, like, we've lost, whatever, that wouldn't have happened. And I think in my life, I've been able to do that in sport so many times, where I've been like, you just never know until that last minute. And we've seen that at the, I don't know if anyone watching or listening watched the World Cup last year, but, Argentina won it in like the last few minutes. Like, it's just crazy what can happen. And I think for me, that also happens in business as well. I've launched programs or whatever it may be, and had very little sign up until the day before. And if I had pulled out and been like, nah, we're not doing it. Even on the weekend, we had a cold and conscious session where we do breath work and ice baths down at the beach. Here we do it by the river. There was 3 people registered until 9 p.m. Saturday night. And I was like, man, that's not even worth the ice that we're going to buy to then have the ice bath. Are we just going to pull the pin? Saturday morning, we had 15. Yeah. And I'm like, you just never know. And in that's the one game or one scenario. But going back to the podcast, I just kept showing up and the numbers started to increase. I started to get better at what I was doing, naturally started to create a community. From there, that then allowed me to create, at the time, it was a Facebook group, the Conscious Collective. I think you were a part of that.
I was.
Yeah. And then that started to grow. Then that turned into a program, which was the Conscious Blueprint, which is, kind of my signature program that I share with people. And then from there turned into me mentoring, speaking on stages, hosting events, hosting retreats. It just happened, and also interviewing higher profile guests on the podcast. And it just evolved naturally. But the biggest point, and this is what I have to pull myself back on, is that I was doing it from a place of, I love doing this. I'm sharing conversation. It was never about this podcast is going to make me X amount of money. It's like whatever flows, whatever happens from this podcast, amazing. If I'm doing what I love and enjoying that, the other stuff is just bonus on top of that.
I love that so much. It's almost like I'm going to take the action and then surrender into the outcome.
There was no forward plan. I was like, in my head, I was like, oh yeah, like eventually this would be really cool to interview, Tony Robbins, or it'd be cool to have a merch range or do this or do that. But it wasn't like next week that has to happen.
Yeah.
And if, like, again, we can always look back and say, if I did this or if I didn't do this.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Exactly. Like, the fact that it has happened the way it is, I have podcast sponsors. I get to be asked to speak on like podcasts, other podcasts, and speak on stages is really cool. And all of that came from committing to a long-term vision of just doing it. And yes, I fell off, my own bandwagon for 6 months. And now I'm back and I'm like, well, why did I do that? If I just stayed consistent. But it was like, it happened. I can see that as a failure. I can see that as a mistake, whatever. It is what happened. It allowed me to bring everything back into the right intention and purpose of it. And now it's like, all right, let's go with it.
And honestly, sometimes we do need to step away from something, especially when we have been doing it for so long. You've been doing it for a long time. Step away to be able to realize how much we love it. Miss it.
100%. Otherwise, like, we can get so ingrained and like involved in everything, especially for business owners. Like, you can be working so much in the business and on the business that, sometimes you need to take a step back to look at the perspective of everything. And don't get me wrong, in all of the businesses I've started, there were a lot of times that I was looking at the shiny object of like, oh, everyone else is doing this, I've got to do that. Or they're doing this, or the next progression, or someone would say, oh, you should be charging XYZ. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And it kind of took me away from the initial purpose. And then, when you're not aligned with your mission, your values in what you're doing, but also yourself, of course, you're not going to feel right or good. So it then took that process of stepping away to draw myself back in, to remember why I'm doing it, to then get back into it.
Yeah, that's incredible. I say to my clients all the time, never forget the core. You have to come back to the core every single day. Shiny object syndrome is a real problem, and I have it. So I understand. Right. Yeah, I know. Shiny object syndrome and being a recovering perfectionist, not great for my productivity. But when I constantly bring back to the core, why am I doing this? Simon Sinek starts with why. Why am I doing this? What's my trajectory? Where am I going? You go, oh, right, okay, I'm just caught up in that little thing for a minute, but I'm back.
Yeah. And your why is never going to be to make $1 million, right? That might be a goal, but your why is your purpose, which then flows into the mission. Whatever the outcome is for you, like, that's fantastic. But the purpose, like, for me, it's to help people connect back into who they really are, so that they can live the life they want to live, or the life they're supposed to live. That could make any amount of money. But if I'm not operating from that place, the things that I do don't feel right.
Yeah.
And I think there is a difference between running a business just for running a business, which I think is good, and I have a few of those, but also running something that I'm passionate about and that I'm working in and that I'm enjoying. Then yeah, it has to be something that aligns with that.
And it feels different. It really does feel different. But I love what you said in your purpose, was that your purpose is for others. And that statement that you made, for others, could mean so many different things in so many different ways. For one, it might mean $1 million, being a millionaire, or whatever, whatever the box is. But for others, it might be finding harmony or inner peace or healing some trauma or whatever it might be. Like, it's such a broad scope. And I feel like that's why I've been so drawn to you in everything you're doing, is because it's not actually about you. It's, you are the vessel that is giving people the ability to be able to step into themselves wholeheartedly. And that's, in my opinion, that's a gift. Like, it's a huge gift. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's my purpose. It's why I'm here.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I got so excited with our podcast that I skipped over the first question. So we're going to do it now. So as I ask all of my guests, what does humanizing business mean to you?
I think to me, humanizing business means, how can you bring the relationships in whatever you're doing to the forefront of everything, not seeing people as a sale or a number, seeing people as a human, and how can I serve? And I think in everything I've done, it's been, whether it's a product, an event, or, me speaking, whenever I go to speak in front of people or on a stage, it's, how can I serve this audience? I jump on a call, whether it's a coaching call, and it's like, what do you need? What are you struggling with, and what do you need? Because me being the person that I am, and the person that wants to serve, is like, I'll find a way. Yeah. Right. And I think in business, there is that side of it. And I've been, in terms of jobs, I've worked over 30 of them. Businesses, I've had over 10. So for me, what matters most for me, and what I've found, is how you make someone feel is going to make all the difference in everything. And at the end of the day, I love, one of the biggest values that I have is connection. And in everything that I do specifically, connection is a big part of it. Connection and community. So if I'm going to create a community and it's based on transaction and not humanness of connection, then it's not going to feel like a community. It's going to feel like I'm here because I paid to be here. And again, that's just how I see things and how I like to humanize things, because we are human beings. If we don't have that element, especially in community, especially with my purpose to help people connect back into who they really are, then they will just feel like another person, and they won't feel unique in their own values and their own purpose and mission. And I feel like in a world where we're being told who to be and what to do, and this is especially in the coaching world, right? They're saying, even if you're a coach, other coaches are saying you need to do it this way or say it this way. I go, no, you don't. You just need to be yourself. And that's what connects with people. And that's what I've found personally. When I'm sharing who I am and being real and honest and authentic, that's what allows me to connect with, whether it's a new client or customer. I don't say followers, because I don't think that's a thing. Although when the bot made a fake profile of me, it was like, I tell my followers, I'm like, community. I share with my community, the things that I want to share. So for me, it's always been about community. So the sale wasn't the focus, it was the community. And that's just my focus, my intention in everything that I do.
Yeah, which is really beautiful. It's bigger than just you, and it's very obvious in that. And I'm interested. So moving through and having these amazing mentors who, whether they were, listening through CDs or whichever way they came across, what would be your one piece of advice that you truly believe everyone should know or hear or understand, or maybe your interpretation of what that might be? Is there one that really stands out to be kind of like, that's the one?
No, because there's so many. But the lessons, geez, there's so many. And like I might even need to do a whole sort of podcast on just that, on like all the lessons that I got from certain people. But
there you go.
at different points in my life,
honestly, that would be such a cool podcast.
It'd be this big montage of quotes.
Yeah. And I can just see the tile now having all of their heads on it to be like, these are the people that I've taken inspiration from throughout my life, and this is why.
And this is why I like Instagram. Like, there's some pages that I follow, like motivational quotes and stuff like that, where you get like a snippet of a reel, and you're just like, damn, that's exactly what I need to hear.
100%.
This is from Dr. John D. Martini, but my take on it is, no matter who you are and what you've done, you're always worthy of love. And that for me was, for so much of my life, I was trying to succeed in order to get approval and love from parents, from other people. You could say it was from my ego. I was like, I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be the next David Beckham, right? For all of the reasons. But it always came at a cost of, if I do this, then I'll be loved. If I do that, then I'll be loved. If I shut this business down, then I won't be loved. So remembering that no matter who I am or what I do, I'm always worthy of love, allows me to sit back and go, okay, this isn't a reflection of who I am. It's just a reflection of decisions I've made, and also, business in itself. Again, as someone that is, I'd say, entrepreneurial and has multiple businesses and projects, it's so easy to take things personally. And as if people don't turn up to an event, or you only get 2 people, it's easy to go, I'm a failure. Again, it goes back to the whole, when I was doing this, playing soccer, I'm a failure. I did something wrong. People don't like me. There's multiple reasons. But if we put it all internally, yes, take responsibility. I think that's one side of it. Self-responsibility. Could I have marketed more? Could I have done this better? Of course, but not going, I'm not worthy because of this result. And I think that's where business at times becomes a fun game that you get to play and work out based on trying new things, evolving, growing. And when you do find the game or the way to play it in the way that works for you, it does become fun. It does become effortless. Money does come to you quite effortlessly. But sometimes you have to go through the hard levels of that game. And remembering that you are worthy of love and worthy just as you are, regardless of the result, takes a lot of the pressure off.
100%.
And who you are.
Massively. We've kind of deep dived through the podcast in the past around the whole taking it right back to the very core level of indoctrination and patterns and habits that we learn through our parents, our parents, our teachers, those kinds of things, and really starting to understand our human behavior and acknowledging that a lot of it isn't actually us. It's just what we've heard or seen or replicated when we were little sponges, and just taking information from everywhere. And we've inherently taken on other people's beliefs and ways that the world must be. And I know for me, one of them was that I was born like this, you can't change me, or I can't change, more importantly, I am like this forever. And that, I don't even know where I picked it up from, but that was such a fundamental thing for me, that when the penny dropped and I was opened to the idea that you have the choice to change, that for me was like, what? You mean I don't have to just keep going the way that I've always gone and keep letting life happen to me? I actually get to decide and make a choice and make a change. And my mind was just so on that train of thought of, I guess, inherently not being able to fundamentally, we lose a little bit of choice as children, because we do take on things from the big people around us, and our big people are simply doing the best that they can with what they have. What are your thoughts on this whole area?
Yeah, look, I think we're sponges at that time. What we watch, who we surround ourselves with, as we know now as adults, who we surround ourselves with and what we consume. On a health side of things, if you consume shit, you're going to feel like shit.
Yeah.
If you have great people around you that are motivating and inspiring, it's just naturally going to flow onto you. And I've lived in so many different situations, whether it's being in sporting teams where the energy was really good, you'd be like, yeah, I feel really good. But if the energy was really crappy, you'd feel that too. Being in relationships where it felt really crappy, you'd feel it too. So as a kid, it's hard to navigate that, because you're given this is what can happen. But 2 things on this. One, I moved away at 16. I moved to Melbourne to play. I got a scholarship. So 16, I moved 6 hours away from my family to be in Melbourne playing sport, right? So doing that, I was in a whole new environment. And because I was 16 playing at senior level with adults, I didn't have a choice. But remember, at 17, I started network marketing. So the sponge of information that I was taking on was incredible. When you've got Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Bob Proctor, Aaron Sansoni, Dean Graziosi in your ear 24/7, you have to take on something good. And for me, spending a lot of time alone was also beneficial because all I had to listen to was them. They were my friends, my mentors. So when I did come into environments where I was around other humans, I was very cautious of, oh, you're not to judge, but like, is that a mindset I want to be around? Am I going to take your advice when you're not living a life that I want? And I think that played on really important when, you know, I've been in business and I've been, you know, surrounded by people that there's also the toxic side of that, where there's people that say a lot of things but don't actually follow through. And that's where I guess over the years you learn to be like, okay, actions speak louder than words here, but also sometimes it's better to just take a step back and be around myself and listen to myself on things and trust myself, because sometimes all of this can just get too much information on there. And one of the examples I share on that, where, you know, everyone can decide whether this is good or bad, right? But I see it as, like with sport, for me, it was a very valuable lesson in understanding long-term goals and showing up. Like, again, in sport, you can't slack off, especially at an elite level. You are consistently getting better and better.
And they're tracking you and monitoring you and
100%. If you're not good, you'll get kicked out. You know, we don't judge ourselves on like, am I good or not good? Like, again, we bring it back to, I am valuable, I'm enough. But also, if you want to succeed in anything, you need to be up-leveling and evolving. Not to be the best, but to be capable and efficient at what you're doing. You need to be good, not the best, but good at what you do. So my little brother, he has a disability. So he has cerebral palsy in his legs. He grew up with a walking frame with braces on his legs to keep his legs straight. Always wanted to be like me, playing soccer, all of that. Now, I never let him win at anything, you know, and you might say you're a harsh kid. Like, why would you do that? Your brother's got a disability. But I'm a competitive person. I don't if we're at an arcade and there's that basketball game, I'm not going, oh, it's my girlfriend, I'll let her win. No, we're playing mini golf. I'm going to win. Now, it's not from a place of I want to win to beat you. It's just that I'm naturally going to do the best I can. Even with my nieces and nephews now, I don't let them win.
They would hate that.
You learn to get better. And this is where I see him with my little brother is he would never beat me, right? I'd, you know, to a point also probably be a bit too competitive with him.
Maybe we need to get your brother on to ask him whether that scarred him or not.
He's going to come on my podcast soon, so we're going to talk about this.
Amazing. Kiani wants to know.
But I look at the trajectory, and from a place of, obviously, when he was quite younger, he got a bit upset when he lost because winning and losing meant a thing. But in saying that, he progressed to play for Victoria for soccer in the disability team, and now for Australia for the Pararoos. And I go, if I didn't push him to, you know, come on, let's do this, or, you know, you can do better, like find a way to beat me, he would have possibly given up and been like, oh, well, he's just too good. And you know, again, he was a kid that, and a lot of these kids that play in the Pararoos were told, you'll never play sport, you'll never be able to walk properly. Yet my brother has a job as an accountant, completed uni, plays for the Pararoos all over the world every year, and will probably be in that team for the next 20 years. He played his first game was at, I think, 17 for the national team. So, you know, I look at that and I go,
that's incredible.
If he didn't have that competitive edge, he would give up. And I think we all have competition as a natural God-given sort of thing that we want. But I also go, like, it also comes down to accountability. Like, if, for example, if I go for 90 days, I'm going to show up and go, or 8 weeks, go to the gym, do an 8-week challenge. If I don't have accountability and competitiveness even with myself, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be motivated. I'm going to give up. So in growing up, I see that it's so important to foster that. Obviously, don't, you know, beat someone up because they're losing. I didn't know any better. I was like 11, 12, 13, right? But I look back, and we always joke about this of like, you know, it did play an important role. And for me, it was like, yes, I was surrounded by a lot of love growing up in my sport. But if I didn't have that mindset, if I didn't surround myself, especially at 17, you know, 18 to 20, getting into business and all of that with mentors that gave me really, really good and positive advice, I would have given up a long time ago and just worked a job.
I love that too.
Nothing wrong with the job. Nothing wrong with the job. I just wouldn't have pursued the things that I would have liked to pursue.
And I think it's really important to mention there for anyone that's kind of in a situation where sometimes we are not consciously in control of the people that we surround ourselves with because they're school friends, their family, whatever they might be. However, if there is a moment in time when you sit there and go, oh, wow, I've always thought that there was something wrong with me because of the way I thought, perhaps it's that we need to start, or could consider starting reaching for people whose message you do align with. So I'm a massive Tony Robbins girl. Getting to go face to face in September. I'm so excited. First firewalk. I'm so excited. But find those voices that you do resonate with and start listening to them. You can be the change that you need. The minute that you've acknowledged or identified that perhaps the message that's coming already isn't quite right, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Because I know for me, for a long time, I was like, there's something wrong with me. I don't fit in anywhere. I never really got like the clicky thing with the girls at school and didn't really have all that many like close friends. And I was like, oh, there's something wrong with me. This is a me thing, not them. Whereas what I learned and what I experienced was that I don't really understand the whole girl bitchy thing. So I didn't fit in because they had very different values to me, but I didn't understand that at that age. So I feel like that piece of advice there in terms of, finding who your mentors are, finding where the voices are, listen to them every day, put them in your ears, start to cultivate a mindset of those who have lived before us. And that's a really quick little hack way to start to kind of like level up that thinking and that behavior. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that share. That was incredible.
Oh, you're welcome. Looking at that, like even if you're in a place like a workplace or a situation where the people aren't the people you want around you, that's where you can start to utilize podcasts, YouTube, whatever it may be. You can even use AI now to create this avatar of the person you want to mentor you. And some people could be in family situations where they're like, I can't stand my family. And like for me, so long I had to go outside into my car to run my calls because like my family didn't understand what I do or why. So if the environment around you, if you can't change the people around you, change the people around you. Choose who you want to be surrounded by in terms of what can you put in your ears, in your headphones. Where can you go? Who's your tribe that you can connect with? And I think an important part of that is if you're feeling like you don't have that support or that tribe, I also go back to, are you fully allowing yourself to be seen and showing up as you? Because that's what then attracts those people. And if you don't have them right now, go to them, go find them. Like, for me, creating communities was a way of being like, I want to be surrounded by like-minded people. I want to imagine being in a community where it felt like school, but people you actually like, not people you just had to be with.
And learning things that are actually beneficial, not
exactly. Imagine going on school camp with people that you actually like and are like-minded and that you want to be around. Oh my God, it's called a retreat.
Yes.
So
and
why not host them? Why not do
develop.
those? Yeah. So yeah, I think in any situation, we always have to pull it back to what can I do in this situation? And if it's not, remove myself from that situation. Plenty of ways to bring in that inspiration and be surrounded by an environment that is going to help you move forward in any way.
This little Duvalaki here has got everything you need, and it's in your hand generally like 23 hours of a day. So whatever you need, you can find through the phone and through the internet, and through most things these days are free as well. It's a beautiful world that we live in where we're cultivating community and we're really truly embodying the value of giving back. It's an incredible space to be. But for those people who are looking at where to start, who would be your recommended listening? Who would be your recommended, I know you don't like the word following, so what kind of a community are we going to look for? And then is there any kind of online recommendations? Like I know I use Insight Timer to help me. That taught me how to meditate. That was really cool because I was a sucky meditator. So yeah, give us your little hacks and tips and tricks and where to start.
Oh man, I wish you asked me this 2 months ago, but I used to have a meditation app. So
well, I'm loving the little daily insights that we're getting
on the Inspired Collective. Yeah. So we've just launched very beginner stage of the Inspired Collective. So basically, it's exactly what I was saying before. It's a way to bring like-minded people together. We're going to be sharing all different topics. There's different sections where if people want to are creators and they want to learn more about social media, we have experts there that are going to just be sharing tips every single day and helping people. We have a guy that works for Gary Vee that's going to jump in as well. Then it's the spiritual side, then there's a health side, then there's a business side. So I'm wanting to create and foster a community, a worldwide community together, and bring it all together where we can learn and grow together, and then also plan in-person events. Because I always imagined I want to be able to come to the Sunshine Coast and have 20 people that we can all catch up and go to dinner with, and feel like there's family everywhere we go, because I've created that before and I know it can be done. In terms of who I would plug into, like, geez, I'm very indifferent when it comes to a lot of these things. I listen to some very out there people in terms of work and stuff. Like if it comes to business, I listen to Alex Hormozi. I love his content right now. The interviews that I am loving, it's going to sound really weird, is actually my own. The ones that I've just released recently, Emil Steenveld, Aaron Bahagia, who's Ink, Pray, Love, like those two conversations have blown my mind, because one, I was there recording it and I was like, was I not listening? But listening back, being like, okay, these have changed a lot for me, and also just the little bits of wisdom that have come out from them. So definitely go check out my podcast. That's a cheeky plug, the Carlo Cirillo Show. But I like the ones that I look up to would be Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins. They're always sharing something really, really good. But I really love the OGs, like your Bob Proctor, your Zig Ziglar, like people that aren't no longer here, but they've been preaching the same message for 50 years.
Yeah. And how cool is that? It hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. And this is where
anything new. It's people, always been
here. Yeah, the people ask, what's the one book or the one thing? And it's like, well, there's so many. I always come back to, every new year, I read the same book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Like, Napoleon Hill was like the grandfather of personal development. Yeah. So everything that he's written, everyone's just extended on in their own way, in a good way, right? Absolutely. But for me, it just covers so much of just the basics.
Yeah.
Of course, go to a Tony Robbins seminar. I think they're incredible.
Come and join me in September in Sydney.
I might too.
Please do. But with that, sorry, just quickly on Think and Grow Rich. The first time I read it and I did my goals in the perfect order that book explained to do it in, and I put things in there like have my own TV show, travel the world to speak. I had all of these like big, have a podcast, write a book, had all these massive things on it. And when I looked back on it, literally like I moved house 5 weeks ago. And so unpacking all my boxes and sticking everything back up on the wall, I've still got it. And I literally sat there and ticked every single thing off my list. That was 3 years ago.
That's epic.
I was like, oh my goodness. I knew I'd like hit some of them, but the fact that I was able to cross, I'm like, right, time to read that book again and go through the process. Because I've experienced lots of different methods of creating that vision of what your goals are going to be. But for me, it was how he linked it back to what are you going to give? You need to be willing to give as much as you need to receive for the benefit of others to then be able to get what it is that you're wishing for. And that for me really, really landed.
Yeah. And that's service, not service as in, how is it could be how your business is serving the world, but how are you going to use your life to serve? I don't think anyone wakes up and goes, I just want to be, by myself and focus on myself and I don't care about others. Maybe there is people like that. I haven't met them, but I grew up going to church with my nonna, right? And it's all about giving. How can you say thank you for what you have and give? Then soccer became my church on Sundays. But
You're giving.
For me, it everything has been about, I've just honestly felt like in my life, there was something bigger for me than working a job. And even when I was working a job, the 30 that I've had, it's how can I still serve people in what I'm doing? And how can I make someone smile and make their day better? And how can I give more than, if I'm serving a cocktail at a bar, how can I have a conversation that makes them feel good? How can I create a situation where I'm always serving? And I guess that's what's always led me towards my own things and being entrepreneurial in the way of starting different businesses, because how can I serve in a bigger way in the ways that I want to? And that's what drives me, is like, if I'm serving others, again, you got to know how far you can go with this too. You got to look after yourself. But my cup is overflowing from all the things that I do for myself. That overflow, man, why wouldn't we give to others? And if you can create a business that does that circularly, where it gives to you, gives to others, gives to the world, that's when you feel fulfilled and purposeful in what you're doing. So you can make money and you can help people as well.
Definitely. That's alignment. Oh, I love that.
I think that's Ikigai, where it's like, what are that interconnecting circle of like, what are you passionate about? What are you good at? What does the world need? And kind of what's the middle point of all of that? Also, what can make you money? And then the middle point of that is like, we'll go do that. But also remember, the time frame on things is that things don't happen overnight, but they can happen over time. So if we have a long-term vision for things, doesn't mean it can't happen quicker. I set 10 years and it happened in 2-3 years. Crazy. Having a wellness hub, that was a 5-10 year vision. It happened within 6 months, right? Crazy what you write down and you start putting energy towards, like you've done and ticked off. Me the same. I had an app, a wellness hub, a podcast, getting, thousands of downloads, all of that, all within, a short amount of time. And then you extend and you create more. Like, it didn't happen in a week, didn't happen in a year. It took 2-3 years of being super consistent. And even if that took 5, would it still be worth it? 100%.
Yeah. And that's like a repeating theme here, consistency. So I feel like for you, that's probably a really high value of yours.
Life. Yes, I want to squeeze the juice out of life and make the most of it. So the part of, I'm trying to apply aggressive patience to everything I do, because I can be so impatient, right? And I want it to happen today. But that lesson from sport is that I'm not here to play one season and then see us later. I'm here to play seasons. And, I've seen my friends around me and clients now have children. And it's like, what impact can I also have on that generation that's coming up now? And that's where I start to go, okay, it's not just about the one thing you do. That one thing can have such a ripple effect on others. So I'm not here, personally, I'm not here to play this game for the next 12 months and then cash out, see you later. I'm here for life, and I'll be serving till the day I die.
Oh, I love that. And anyone who is, opportunity is everywhere, but anyone who is lucky enough to come into contact with you, your teachings, your learnings, your mentorship, your guidance, they are going to be left a better person for it. So for those people who are listening, please follow Carlo's journey. It is incredible. He's always doing amazing things. And as we've very clearly spoken about, it is for you, not necessarily for him. But it was really funny while you were talking about how you wish to leave people when you meet them, whether it's at a bar or you're having those conversion rates. My little feminine energy dropped in, and all I could see was like this little fairy, like dropping fairy dust on people. Like, there's a little bit of me, there's a little bit of me.
Yeah.
You can have a little bit of me.
I want to plant seeds of hope and inspiration. That's why, the whole community is called the Inspired Collective, like inspiring people with everything that I do. But also I want to hug as many people as I can, because I feel like we all need a hug, more hugs in our life.
We do. Yeah. Long, beautiful breath, heart hugs.
Yeah. And that's why at all my events, well, giving away the secret now, is I make everyone hug. And like, when you've got, I think at Lost Paradise at the start of the year, we had 70 people in a group hug.
Yeah, well, I do remember one of the
I think I know exactly which one you're talking about too. Yeah.
It got very beautiful but intense. Very intense. And we went around the circle, and every time we'd come in and give each person a hug. And
I remember exactly which one. It was the Ho'oponopono. It was a cacao ceremony. Yeah.
Yeah, that was incredible. That was incredible. I've never felt so much energy. And of course, I mean, it's beautiful to give to others, but then to stand and receive that much. It would have been like 40 people there that time, maybe, and have every single person touching me or touching someone who was touching me and giving me their love and blessing. And I've got goosebumps thinking about it. Like, that was magic. Magic. And I'm also one person that I'm like, I'll instigate the hug. If I don't instigate the hug, don't touch me. All right, wonderful. Look, I'm going to have to wrap us up there, but is there anything else that you would like to share with us? And also, I know we've got the podcast plug, but where else can we find you?
I would say like places to find me is just my Instagram. If you're not on Instagram, download, find me somehow. Kiani will send you the details. But yeah, Instagram.
You're going to be all over our socials very, very soon. So.
Carlo _Cirillo. That's where I share a lot of things. I love to document my life, and I try and be as real and honest as possible. I don't just share, the nice things that happen. A lot of the tough things, and I try and be as relatable as I can. In that, you'll see all my like links and things that I do, whether it's Sala, whether it's our new business accelerator agency, or the Carlo Cirillo show. Go check them out. Listen to the podcast. I think that's the biggest way to get more of this stuff. Like I said, I'm not just saying the last 2 episodes were good, or all of the episodes are good, but the last 2 really were just a different level for me. And you'd know as a podcaster, like, you have some conversations and you're like, oh, that was good, and then you have some and you're like, whoa, that was just nuts. So I love sharing those, and hopefully I'll be able to get Kiani on soon when I come up north and sit in person, and also some other incredible people. But I think in that as well, like, I have lots of meditations, lots of things that I run, some online and some off. Joining our community, it's free to come into, and there's daily inspiration in there, but there's also going to be a lot of stuff coming up, and I'd love people to be a part of that, and a way that I can also support people, because a lot of these platforms have algorithms and all these gateways where we can't reach everyone that comes in. So this is a way where there's no algorithms. It's what I post, you all get to your phone. And I think that's also a thing in this world that we don't receive. We have a lot of stuff coming up, and we have a lot of suggestions of, you should watch this, or this could be good for you. That's great. Phone's always listening, but sometimes there's an overload of stuff. And I'm not saying my stuff is the be all end all, but at least it's some bit of inspiration in your day that you can connect to.
Yeah. And I feel as though the one thing I have noticed is it's a very holistic approach.
Yeah.
So it's not just banging the same message down your throat. It's little bits and drops of wisdom and education and learning and business and life and relationship, and all of it kind of like bundled up into one delicious thing.
Yeah. And I think the only thing I'd leave on is just that advice that I gave before, is that no matter who you are, where you are in life, what results you have, you are worthy of love. And you can always start today to create a better tomorrow for yourself, and know that it starts with trusting yourself and trusting the process. And then, the hardest thing from that is then surrendering and being like, okay, if I can start from that place, all I need to do is take another step. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. So keep taking those steps, keep showing up, keep doing the work, the inner work and the outer work, and results will happen. It's a law of nature. So yeah, you got this.
I love it. Oh, thank you so much for coming and spending your precious time with me. I really, really appreciate it. And yes, we will be seeing each other very, very soon.
Awesome. Can't wait. Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for tuning in once again, the She Can Humanize Business podcast. You can find us on all the platforms and all the social medias. Everything is in the link. Thank you so much. We will see you next week. We have an incredible guest coming on, so stay tuned, and peace out. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I would love to hear your feedback around what resonated and what key lessons and learnings that you took out of today's episode. You can find me on Instagram and on LinkedIn under the She Can Humanize Business podcast or Kiani Mills. I really hope that you were able to see, feel, and experience a new way of humanizing business.